So in order to support South Africa's efforts to reduce its reliance on coal through a just transition to cleaner energy sources, South Africa, France and Germany have signed loan agreements that call for the two European countries to each provide 300 million euros in concessional financing to the African nation. At a ceremony held during the 27th United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP27, which is currently taking place in Sharm El Sheikh, that's in Egypt, the financing agreements were acknowledged and welcomed by President Cyril Ramaphosa and his two European counterparts. We're now joined by Audrey Rojkoff, who is the Regional and Country Director for the French Development Agency, to help us understand more about the agreements. Audrey, thank you very much for availing yourself this morning. In trying to understand why France is backing this move for South Africa to head to renewable energy, perhaps help us understand the country's energy landscape.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me. So it all started last year, actually, during COP26. The South African government invited partners to discuss the long-term trajectory of South Africa. At that time, and it's still true, South Africa is facing multiple challenges. We have here a high level of CO2 emissions, an electricity sector that is facing some difficulties. We have inequalities and unemployment. So South African government invited the partners, which were France, Germany, the UK, the US, and the European Union, to discuss and to finance the plans of South Africa to support the transition. So France was interested in joining this group because we are all facing the same challenges, Every country in the world has to find the right balance between climate and social issues. And as we feel we are stronger together, we were willing to contribute to this dialogue. So the partners pledged to mobilize an initial amount of $8.5 billion US, among which there is a contribution from France of 1 billion euros.
Audrey, what is the energy landscape of France? Have you used coal? Did you transition away from coal? What are you currently using? What does it look like?
Yes, so as I was saying, we are really willing to share experience among countries, and France actually exited from coal some decades ago. So this provides us with somehow an experience in exiting from coal. We did good things and also some failures, and we are happy to share the experience with South Africa. Actually, there is an energy crisis in Europe, so I hope this is temporary and we are going back on our long-term trajectory soon.
Sure. Please talk us through the good and the bad that you highlighted. As you rightfully mentioned, there are some European countries that are facing energy crises. So
it's very, very long to implement an exit from coal. So you have to deal with many issues, and especially social issues. The reskilling of the workers, the territories, the communities have to be supported to find another way of living, which is sustainable. So it's not always easy. You face in that times a lot of unemployment and a lot of course, unhappy communities. But on the long term, it's always very good benefit to engage on a sustainable trajectory, where it creates new types of jobs, where you have green opportunities, as we say, and it's on the long term, it's a good benefit for all communities.
Why then are some countries facing energy crises?
Because we are all interdependent. So the energy needs are all over the world, and we have a lot of energy needs everywhere, especially in Europe, and all our production and generation are all related to another country. So it's the current phase we are entering in is to be more less interdependent, I would say, and to rely on our own production. This is precisely what we would like to discuss with South Africa.
Are you able to talk us through the loan agreements and some of the repayment terms?
Sure. So the repayment terms, I would say it's on the beneficiary to discuss about it. We provided a loan to the South African government through the National Treasury. And this loan is expected to provide financing at a cheaper rate. AFD, I don't know if you know much about AFD, but we are the French Public Development Bank, and we are a non-profit financial institution. So we are borrowing money on behalf of South Africa at a cheaper price than what South Africa could borrow on the open market. So it is aimed at support South Africa in borrowing the huge amount of money it requires to implement its just energy transition. So South Africa is going to borrow at a cheaper price from us than on the market.
How long to go until South Africa receives that money, and is there a deadline in terms of when the country should then transition?
The disbursement of this loan is expected in the coming weeks. We are going to disburse before the end of this year. In terms of timeline, I would say that each just energy transition is very unique. As I said, we are all facing the same type of challenges, but each country is unique in terms of geography, economy, politics, history, social and environment context. So every country has to decide on its own rhythm to implement a just energy transition. We strongly believe that South Africa has entered a very, very rapid pathway, and it's going to be implemented very soon.
Are there other countries on the continent that you have perhaps identified that you would like to also assist with the transition to renewables?
Yes, many countries. Actually, AFD operates in 100 of countries, but in most of African countries. And all our financing, 50% of all our financing is dedicated to Africa. In Africa, we have identified indeed several countries which we work on the energy sector. For example, Senegal, but not only. And as I said, each context is so different that we are not going to implement the same dialogue that we are developing with South Africa.
Thank you very much for availing yourself this morning. Audrey Rojkoff is the Regional and Country Director for the French Development Agency.